Tennis fans, we have just witnessed something that defies every single logic of professional sports. If you blinked, you might have missed it, but the history books certainly won't. Welcome back to Tennis Desk. Today, we are breaking down a result so surreal, so utterly lopsided, that it feels like a glitch in the ATP matrix. We are talking about the Monte-Carlo Masters, a stage where legends are born and grit is tested on the grueling red clay. But what happened on Wednesday between Daniil Medvedev and Matteo Berrettini wasn't just a tennis match, it was a 49-minute demolition that has sent shockwaves through the locker rooms from Monaco to Melbourne. Imagine being a top 10 player in the world. You've won Grand Slams, you've been world number one, and you've conquered nearly every surface. Now imagine stepping onto the court for your first clay court match of the season and leaving 49 minutes later without having won a single, solitary game. No, that is not a typo. Daniil Medvedev, the world number 10, was just double bageled, 6-0, 6-0, by Matteo Berrettini. To put this into perspective, the odds of this specific scoreline happening were calculated at approximately 0.013%. You had a better chance of finding a needle in a haystack while wearing a blindfold than seeing this result today. The atmosphere in Monte Carlo was electric at the start, but it quickly turned into a mix of stunned silence and sarcastic cheers. For Medvedev, a man who has never hidden his complicated relationship with clay, this was the ultimate nightmare. We know Daniil often jokes about how much he hates the dirt, but today, the dirt truly bit back. On the other side of the net stood Matteo Berrettini, a man who has spent the last 2 years battling injuries that would have forced many players into retirement. Entering as a wild card, ranked 90th in the world, the Italian didn't just win, he authored one of the most ruthless performances in the history of the Open era. Let's talk about the sheer statistical insanity of what we just watched. In a sport where holding serve is usually the bare minimum, Medvedev failed to reach a single game point on his own serve for the entire match. Think about that for a second. Every time he stepped up to the line to start a game, he was under immediate, suffocating pressure. He won only 17 points in the entire match. 17 points across 12 games. That's an average of less than 1.5 points per game. For a player of Medvedev's caliber, someone known for his octopus defense and his ability to grind opponents into the dust, this wasn't just a bad day at the office, it was a total system failure. The match began with a flicker of hope. In the very first game, Berrettini faced 2 break points. At that moment, it looked like we were in for the typical Medvedev chess match. But Berrettini wiped them away with the authority of a man who knew exactly what his game plan was. Once those doors were shut, the floodgates opened. Berrettini's hammer forehand was clicking with terrifying precision. He wasn't just hitting the ball hard, he was painting lines, using the heavy clay to kick the ball up high into Medvedev's strike zone, and making the Russian look completely lost for answers. As the first set vanished in a blink, 24 minutes of pure Italian dominance, you could see the frustration boiling over under Medvedev's skin. We've seen the MELTDOWN before, and usually, it's a catalyst for him to refocus and find his game. But today, the rage was different. It was the rage of helplessness. Early in the second set, after netting a forehand to go down 2-0, the cork finally popped. In a scene that is already going viral, Medvedev didn't just smash his racket, he went on a demolition mission. He slammed the frame against the clay 7 successive times. Not once, not twice, but 7 times, with the crowd's cheers growing louder with every strike. Then, in a final act of surreal calmness, he walked over and deposited the mangled remains of his equipment into the courtside trash bin. It was a visual metaphor for his entire afternoon. His game was broken, and it was headed for the bin. Why did this happen? It's the question everyone is asking. We have to look at the context. Medvedev was coming off a brilliant hardcourt swing, reaching the final in Indian Wells and looking like a genuine contender. But the transition to clay is always his Achilles heel. He has admitted in the past that the movement on this surface feels unnatural to him. He hates the bad bounces, he hates the sliding, and he hates how his flat shots lose their sting. However, even with that history, he won Rome last year. He knows how to play on this stuff. Today, though, he looked like he had forgotten everything. He hit 27 unforced errors and only 3 winners. 3 winners in 49 minutes of play. You can't win a match in a local park with those stats, let alone a Masters 1000. But let's not make this all about Medvedev's collapse, because that would be a massive disservice to Matteo Berrettini. This is a guy who was the golden boy of Italian tennis before Jannik Sinner took the world by storm. After his Wimbledon final in 2021, his career was derailed by his own body. Foot injuries, abdominal tears, he's been through the ringer. To see him come out here and play what he called one of the best performances of my life is genuinely heartwarming for any tennis fan. He claimed he only missed 3 shots in the entire match. On clay, against a top 10 defender, that is an impossible standard of play. He was clinical, he was focused, and most importantly, he was healthy. When we look at the history of the sport, what Berrettini achieved today puts him in a very exclusive club. He is only the 5th player since the ATP rankings began in 1973 to hand out a double bagel to a top 10 opponent. The last time this happened was 10 years ago, when David Goffin did it to Tomas Berdych in Rome. It is so rare because, at this level, the serve usually acts as a safety net. Even if you're playing terribly, you can usually scrape together one service hold through raw power or a few lucky aces. But Berrettini's return game was so locked in, and Medvedev's confidence was so shattered, that the safety net simply wasn't there. The post-match comments from the legends were just as cutting. Andy Murray, watching from the sidelines, noted how embarrassed Medvedev must have felt walking back to that locker room. There is a specific kind of locker room shame associated with a 6-0 loss. It's the ultimate sign of being outclassed. For Medvedev, who prides himself on his intelligence and his tactical mind, being solved so completely by Berrettini must sting more than the loss of ranking points. He's now lost 10 sets in his career by a 6-0 scoreline, but this is the first time he's ever suffered the double egg. So, where do they both go from here? For Berrettini, this is a massive green light. If he can maintain this level of health and aggression, he isn't just a wild card anymore, he's a threat to anyone in the draw. He's got the big serve, the heavy forehand, and a vastly improved backhand slice that stayed incredibly low today, forcing Medvedev to dig balls out of the dirt constantly. For the Italian fans, seeing Matteo back in this form, alongside Sinner and Musetti, means Italy is truly becoming a superpower in the tennis world. For Daniil Medvedev, the road back is a bit more complicated. He's going to have to shake this off quickly. The clay season is long, and if he lets this defeat get into his head, it could be a very short spring for him. He needs to find that clay court specialist version of himself that showed up in Rome last year. He needs to stop fighting the surface and start embracing the grind again. The racket smash and the trash can incident will be memes for weeks, but the only way to make people forget about this scoreline is to go out and win the next one. Tennis is a brutal sport. It's lonely, it's physical, and as we saw today, it can be deeply humiliating. One day you're in a Masters final, and the next, you're losing 12 games in a row in under an hour. But that's why we love it. The margins are razor thin, and the momentum can be a runaway train. Today, that train was driven by an Italian powerhouse, and Daniil Medvedev was just standing on the tracks. What do you guys think? Was this just a fluke bad day for Medvedev, or has Berrettini officially found the blueprint to dismantle him on clay? And where does this rank in terms of the most shocking upsets you've ever seen? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Did you see this coming at all, or were you as stunned as we were?